Hi, neighbor. It is Bob Lingle of Good Neighbor Bookstore in Lakewood, New York, and this is the pre-order podcast. When I started the episode today, I wanted to start it off a bit like Delilah and give you some helpful, thoughtful things to think about, but I couldn't think of any. So instead, I'm going to just talk about what I talked about with Don Martin, which was his book, Verity Vox and the Curse of Foxfire. I screw that up in the episode and add an extra the. See if you catch it. Don certainly did. We also talk about a number of things, like the fact that I had not finished reading his book and was totally called out on it when he asked me what my favorite part of it was. It was a very fun conversation. I hope you like it. If you're new to the podcast, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, and do anything that feels appropriate to do to this podcast. With that, I send you to Don Martin. Your book is Verity Vox and the Curse of the Foxfire that comes out August.
No, it's not. There's no second the.
And Verity Vox and the Curse of Foxfire.
Yes.
Your
the
book
Foxfire
is Verity Vox and the Curse of Foxfire.
Yes, it is.
I had a moment of panic. I'm like, do I have the wrong book in front of me?
Hi, Bob.
Which is YA fantasy.
Yep.
It has witches, and all sorts of magical things,
cryptids, and grannies, and small towns, and Bible verses, and songs, and all sorts of things. Yes, and a cat that isn't a cat.
People like a cat that is not a cat.
Yeah.
So when I bought the bookstore 7 years ago, there was a very small YA section, and it was, as long as we have Harry Potter in stock, we're fine. And that kind of got me through longer than I would have liked. And it was just a genre that I was not familiar with. I had some recommendations that came in. TikTok has kind of saved that genre for me, that I'm able to bring in different things that are not Harry Potter. And also, we didn't have a romance section in the store. Not that your book is romance, but now romance is completely taken over the store in multiple sorts of genres.
It takes over all of publishing. That you can fit all the other genres in it and still have room.
Yep.
Which I think is probably a book in the romance.
It probably is. So Harry Potter, unfortunately, just won't go away. And I have been so ignorant to so many things. I've been aware of how awful JK Rowling is, but I never read Harry Potter. I only watched the first movie. So every time I see the word, and I've only have read the word, I just read it as Dramamine, which is not it. I know that's not it. So that has been a hot button thing that you, as you like to do, have used your voice. I
do seem to continue to step in it. We are kind of on. So JK Rowling becoming an unrepentant, militant transphobe sucks. It sucks for a lot of people. Of course, most specifically trans people, whose voices and opinions on all of this are the folks who should be continued to be centered and uplifted and protected. Broadly speaking, it just sucks for a lot of kids like me that I was 11 when the first book came out. Harry was 11. I was 11. I wanted to be the weird magical misfit that went off to a magical school. It meant a lot to a lot of people, clearly, because look what it became. There were always not always, as the IP went on and it started looking like they were trying to kind of milk it for all it was worth. This was back when we were starting to split. I remember Harry Potter was one of those that they took what should have been the final movie and split it into two, and they were doing that to a lot of stuff to try to stretch out that IP as much as possible. And then they were like, hey, we're out of books. Maybe you could write some other books so we could turn those into movies. What if we had a theme park? Maybe we need more maybe we need more. And as that kind of went on, and as people started realizing that, like, what's going on here? We are milking this for all it's worth. People started to have questions. I remember one of the first questions about JK Rowling and her weird relationship with what at the time was her version of allyship was when she revealed that Dumbledore had actually secretly been gay the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, at first it was like, okay, gay Dumbledore, I'm here for it. Yet, okay, that's weird, but sure, okay, that's fine. And then we were supposed to get, new movies about young Dumbledore. And he wasn't gay. And it was weird because it was like, you did this whole thing about how, like, Dumbledore was actually gay the whole time. And then we see Dumbledore young with the person that he was supposedly in love with, and he wasn't gay. What's up with that? And of course, other people start reevaluating her work and realizing how frankly racist and anti-Semitic it was in parts. The Goblins at the Bank, Cho Chang, Kingsley Shacklebolt, and the other naming conventions and story tropes and stuff like that. And then she just decided she hated trans people really, really, like a lot, and like made it her whole personality about like 5 years or so ago, 6 years ago or so, and has since it just has snowballed. Like every day she gets more and more transphobic. She uses her money and her platform to specifically target trans people or anybody she suspects of being trans, as we saw at the Olympics last fall, I want to say, where she went after a boxer who she just decided must be trans and was secretly a man punching women. And it was like, nope, just as a woman, not even a trans woman, just not that trans women aren't women, just saying, this person was a cisgender woman. Anyways, and her militant transphobia has meant that the entire IP just kind of needs to die. Now, I'm not an idiot. I know how this works. This has been foundational media. This has been foundational storytelling for a lot of people. And a lot of people are not willing to give that up at all. And we see that by the number of tickets that are sold to Harry Potterville down in Universal Studios. And we see that by how vigorously Warner Brothers seems to be trying to buy the IP from her so that at least people could maybe feel good about supporting it, because then it definitely wouldn't go to her anymore.
Yeah.
And then kind of right as we'd all reached a point where we'd all, I don't know, all the battle lines had been drawn. Everybody had chosen their side. Everybody that was going to step away from the world had stepped away from the world, and, yada, yada, yada. Then suddenly Hermione Summer comes and we're right back in it. And suddenly we're all spending all of our freaking time and brain power once again talking about the intellectual property of a militant transphobe who has stated on more than one occasion that she takes every single penny of her royalty check as validation of her beliefs and views. And yet there is a pretty massive waiting, eager audience that continues to want more stories from this nearly 30-year-old property. And there are 3 books that are all derivative works, derivative fan fiction turned traditionally published works that have either already all come out or are still coming out. I can't remember when Alchemized comes out, but or Manacled, whatever it currently is.
Okay. I wasn't aware that was one of them.
Yep, there's 3. There's the Irresistible Urge to Fall in Love with Your Enemy. There's Rose in Chains, and then there's whichever Alchemized. I think is the serial number scrubbed off title. So, and that's the big one. That author got a $5 million advance.
And I can tell you that publishers are shoving that one down bookstores' throats during the ordering season.
I can imagine, because that author got a $5 million advance. And they would very much like to make their money back, because that's a lot of money to pony up. But they're also the only one that has kind of shied away from these works being Harry Potter derivative works. The other two have very much leaned in. Their authors continue to like hug up to the Harry Potter property. They have made Bridget Knightley and Julie Soto have made numerous social media posts about Hermione Summer, hugging up about how this is fanfic. The publishers themselves put out advertisements on Edelweiss, which you know what Edelweiss is, being a bookseller. Directly calling these fan fiction directly. I mean, I think the Irresistible Urge Edelweiss one sheet was like 98% dedicated to the Harry Potter, like an explanation of what fan fiction is. Like it had like AO3 stats on there and like a whole rundown of the Harry Potter IP. And then way down in a little corner at the bottom, you got the title of the book. If I were the author of that book, and you spent so much time trying to tell somebody that my book is worth it because it's just a scrubbed up version of somebody else's rehashed IP, I'd be pissed. I'd be pissed if I found out that that is how my book was being marketed, as just a derivative work of somebody else's stuff. But, you know, I made different life choices. So here we are. That's where we are. And it sucks really, really bad because we are still in it. And we are all trans and queer authors, allies, marginalized authors of all types, and readers who support us are having a lot of conversations right now about which events we go to, which bookstores we go to, who is supporting us, what does it mean to support it. Like it just sucks. It all sucks. It really fucking sucks how much of my brain power and my time is spent talking about a transphobe. I hate every inch of this. I am exhausted because I also live in Trump's America where, you know, we are selling our house, our horse ranch right now. My husband's a gay Mexican immigrant. And, you know, we are selling our current home so that it's easier to pivot and move if we have to, so that we are a little bit, you know, so that we can be in a more safe area. And it all just sucks. Everything that we're doing, just a lot of stuff sucks. And everything about this conversation around the fact that we're platforming Harry Potter right now in 2025 and the adults that can't read a different book by now sucks. It all sucks.
I can
With
commiserate.
That, let's talk about something fun.
Let's talk
Pretty
about
please.
Your book.
Yes, that'd be great.
So Verity Vox and the Curse of Foxfire. No second thought.
No
Got
second
it that time. Give us the elevator pitch for this book.
The elevator pitch is that Verity Vox is a witch in training who is sent to a forgotten coal mining town in the mountains of Appalachia. And when she arrives, she learns she has to break a curse, find a missing girl, and solve the mystery of what's really under the mountain. It is my love letter to the mountains that gave me life, because and it's actually about real history. It's largely inspired by the Vulcan Bridge collapse in Vulcan, West Virginia. And the whole world is populated from people and places either in my family tree or from my childhood. So like May Miller's barn is right down the street from my uncle's house, and where Tacita is first found is out by where my granny's house used to be. And you know, all of these things are deeply connected to me. So you know, I've called it sort of a love letter to kids and kids at heart who found themselves on the wrong end of scripture but the right side of choir.
What was the inspiration behind the character of Verity Vox?
Oh, well, that's super easy. I think that one's pretty obvious because the comps for this are what if Kiki's Delivery Service took place in the world of Old Gods of Appalachia? Um, I think it's pretty obvious to anybody that reads the book that there's a lot of influence from like Studio Ghibli films and the work of Hayao Miyazaki in there. And I suppose in some ways she starts off as a little bit of a love letter to Kiki. I always saw, growing up, you watch the movie and I always wondered what happened to Kiki next after she left the bakery. Did she stay there? We never see her because when we see her, I think she's 13, 12 or 13, something like that. And she hasn't really developed any powers of her own yet. The only thing that she can do is fly at that point. And I always wondered, like, what happened next for her? What kind of magic did she develop? We know that in that world of hers, there's psychic witches because she meets that girl at the beginning of the movie that reads fortunes. Her mother does healing and concocts remedies. We also see that in there. So I always kind of wondered what happened next. But a lot of this really started, like I said, with the story of Vulcan, West Virginia, the bridge collapse that happened there, and trapping this coal mining town in a mountain for years without any legal road into or out of the town because there was this town called Vulcan. It's this little coal mining town. And if you don't know what a coal mining town is, it's an industry town, right? We've got a lot of those all around the US where, like I remember a few years ago, there was a story about like the Kodak factory closing down and what that would mean for all of the people that live there, because the only industry there is the Kodak factory. Yeah. So we've got a lot of those all over the US where a town is built up basically to just house the people that work for the local company. That's what a coal mining town is. It's a town that was sort of built up by the coal mining company to house all the people that work there, the miners and their families. Vulcan was such a town. It was a small town, and it was sort of set into the mountain. It was only reachable by what's called a swinging bridge. If you don't know what a swinging bridge is, but you've ever seen an Indiana Jones movie, it's one of those wood and rope bridges. They're always cutting to try to knock him into the river. And that was the only legal road into or out of the town. And when the coal ran out and the mining company left, that meant there was no more money. There was nobody keeping up the roads and bridges. So eventually the bridge gave way to rot and it collapsed and fell into the river, and that trapped the people in their town, more or less. And there was no formal government in the town of Vulcan. This guy, John Robinette, self-appointed himself as mayor. He was like, well, we need somebody in charge around here, so I guess that's gonna be me. So he raised his hand. He's like, I'm the mayor now. So he reached out to the state of West Virginia for help, and the state of West Virginia was like, you know what, we just checked the couch cushions. I am so sorry to let you know, but we don't have any bridge money for you. Sorry about that. Good luck though. Enjoy being trapped in a mountain town. So they reached out to the federal government of the United States. The federal government said, hey, we just checked that same couch. No bridge money. I am so sorry. So the town of Vulcan got a little creative, and they decided to make a deal with the devil. And they reached out to the Russian government. And they said, hey, do you want to get one over on the US on their own territory, on their own soil? Because we're their citizens and they are not taking care of us. Could you please help? And at first, nobody took this seriously. But then a journalist working in Moscow heard about the request and, made a little bit of noise about it. And so representative from Moscow went over. They took a look around and they were like, wait, this is all you want? You just want a bridge? And your own government is just leaving you high and dry? And we could also say F you to the US on their own turf. Yes, absolutely. We will rebuild your bridge for you. Within 1 hour of the Russian government agreeing to rebuild this bridge, the state of West Virginia called and they said, hey, we just checked. I'm so sorry. We were checking the wrong couch cushions. We checked the other side of the couch. We found your bridge money. Tell the Ruskies to get lost. So it took years. It took years, start to finish, for the town to get their bridge back. I'm actually going to visit the bridge when I go do my book tour stop in West Virginia. I'm really excited to go see it. It's an updated bridge. It's not a swinging bridge anymore. You can drive across it now. It's still small and skinny, and it's but it's there. It's the bridge is real, the people are real. I had actually had that piece of the story. I was always enchanted by this idea of what if there were a town in a mountain and the only way you could reach it was a bridge, and what if one day that bridge went out? What happens to those people? And I always thought, that's a really cool idea for a setting. And I always wanted to see, we set a lot of fantasy stories in a simulacrum of Europe. It's either Europe or historical Europe or something that really wink, wink, nudge, nudge looks like Europe, but we don't call it Europe. And usually a lot of it is very like England coded. But I always thought, growing up, my dad's side of the family is from West Virginia, and I was born there. I go back all the time. I went to college there briefly. I spent summers there, and I loved it. It was always the most magical place on earth to me. Those mountains are ancient. They're powerful. They're magical. I've always been enchanted by them, and I thought they should be a setting for a fantasy novel. I was like, why are we not setting fantasy novels in our own backyard? I think that we should romanticize our own backyard. So I did. So I had held on to the idea about Vulcan for years and years and years. And I kind of always wondered, like, okay, so there's this town and they're trapped and and how do they get out? Does somebody come in? Do they get out? Is this a fantasy novel? Is this historical fiction? Like, what is this? And years down the road, I mean, probably 10 years later, I had the idea for, I was ruminating on what might happen next for Kiki. And I thought, what if instead of that story taking place in a fantastical version of like the Mediterranean, what if it took place in Appalachia? What if that took place here? What if traveling witches, because there's a lot of witches, there's a lot of North American folklore around witches. What if we had witches here and they were also witches in training and they were sent around, to hone their skills and learn things and to help their neighbors, just like Kiki does, but it happened here. And what if it were horror? What if it wasn't light and fluffy? And what if it took place in the world of old gods of Appalachia? And what if Kiki came to West Virginia? And then I was off. That was where that story came from.
You covered half of my questions here.
Sorry.
So I was like, what do I have left?
If you let me go, I will just yap.
Yeah. No, that was great. It's making my job incredibly easy. I can't let go the number of times that you referenced couches in Appalachia, though.
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
You've got to watch out for those couches. You never know what you might find.
Listen here, buddy. Listen here. Keeping the Ziploc bags away from there.
So what was your path to publication for Verity Vox?
Well, I am blessed that I already had an agent. Actually, writing the book was interesting. So this all started as a short story for my podcast. Every October, I write an original short story and I turn it into like a 1 hour-ish long audio drama. And this was a full cast audio production. It was an hour long. Jax the Bard was my original Verity. And I had a bunch of different friends play the different roles, and I was the narrator, and I had all the music, and I did the spooky ghost voices and stuff. But I knew from the jump that I wanted to turn that into a novel. I knew from the jump. I knew it immediately. As soon as I was a quarter of the way, and the whole plot fell into my head. And I knew that this was a novel, but I also hadn't really written a novel before. I had been working on, because I was a poet and a nonfiction writer then, and I didn't even know if I had the skill set to write a novel, because they're all different skills. Poetry is a different skill set, nonfiction is a different skill set, fiction is a whole different skill set, and just because you're good at one doesn't mean that you can write the others. So I had been writing, like everybody else during the pandemic. I had been writing a novel, and it's this big giant 180,000 word adult science fiction novel that will eventually come out, but I was not a strong enough writer at the time to edit it the way that it needed. And I knew that. Like, my agent wanted to sell it. And I was the one that said no, because I was like, I know the work that it's going to take, but I also know the skill level that it's going to require to turn this into what I want it to be.
Mhm.
Beta readers loved it. It was rolling through. But I slowed it down and I said, I need to sort of teach myself a more linear narrative structure first, and hone those skills. I think I'd like to make my novel debut, my fiction debut, doing Verity Vox. I think I'd like to go ahead and adapt that short story and turn that into a novel. And my agent was on board, and 2.5 months later, I had the first draft of Verity Vox. And then I spent another few months editing that, and I loved it. And then we sold it. So that's that journey. It was my training ground, uh, so that I could teach myself fiction writing and get better at it.
Do you have any advice? Was there any like books that you had read or paths that you took to kind of hone that craft?
Oh, you're talking about like those save the cat, eat the cat, whatever, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
No. No, I don't. Maybe I'm bad. I don't read a lot of craft books. I've taken a
Mhm.
shit ton of writing classes though.
Oh, that's
And I've been writing since I was 10. And I had also, had 3 books under my belt by the time, I mean, this is my 4th book. So I knew that I could write. I knew that I
Mhm.
could write a book. I knew that I had the temerity, and I knew that I had the discipline to get it done. But it was really just about being careful and cautious and learning what my fiction voice was going to sound like, and also learning what my fiction voice was going to sound like for young adult. Because remember, the first novel that I wrote was an adult science fiction novel. It's not out. It will be someday. But yeah, there's a whole different skill set there to do justice to young adult. I will say, not necessarily craft books, but I was really keen on the needs of the market, and where I wanted this book to sit. I grew up being really obsessed long before Harry Potter came out. My introduction to fantasy and science fiction really got kicked off with The Dark is Rising sequence by Susan
Mhm.
Cooper. Man, oh boy, howdy, was I very obsessed with Will and the old ones, and this sort of Arthurian retelling through the eyes of what might be Merlin. And I was so obsessed with that. And also K.A. Applegate's, or I guess she's now going back by Catherine Applegate's Animorphs series as well. And
Yeah.
I wanted to write that for kids today. I wanted to write a book for kids, for that younger, that advanced middle grade, or that younger YA crowd that is so often left out of publishing right now, because publishers don't know what to do with that, because so many adults are reading YA and nobody knows what to do with middle grade. It's all this weird space right now. So I specifically wanted to write for that age group. And I specifically wanted to write something that felt like a fantasy adventure, because I also have heard from a lot of parents and educators and folks, booksellers, that it's like, well, everything in young adult feels like it's just a romance in different skins. And I
Mhm.
wanted to write something that wasn't. I wanted to write the books that I read as a kid. I wanted to write a good old fashioned young adult fantasy adventure. I wanted to write, The Lost Years of Merlin. I wanted to write The Wizard of Earthsea. Those were my books growing up.
Yeah.
That was the world I lived in. Those were the worlds I loved. And sure, sometimes people fall in love, but that wasn't the point. And that's hopefully the tone that I hit in the book. But that was what I was aiming for.
I was excited to get into this because until about a minute ago, I never thought that I was a big fantasy person, but I was obsessed with those Animorphs books.
Yeah. Well, that's not. I mean, it's science fiction,
No, yeah.
but yeah, I mean, science fiction, fantasy. But yeah, I'm all the way obsessed, all the way obsessed. And if I ever get to meet Catherine Applegate in person, I will crumble into dust. I
Yeah.
will. That's one of those that, like, if you ever come across somebody and they know your name, like, in the nonfiction world, I'm also a big fan of like AJ Jacobs and Mary Roach and those folks. And they know who I am now, and I don't know how to handle that, and that's very strange for me, because I'm nobody. You shouldn't know who I am. You're Catherine Applegate. You're AJ Jacob. You're Mary Roach. You're like, no, I don't want you to know who I am. I'm nobody. Please go back to not perceiving me. Thank you. So I think if Catherine Applegate ever came up to me and was like, hey, I loved your book, I would literally die. So yeah, I love her and I love her work. Right. And she does such amazing stuff. That series is so criminally underrated, which I know is a stretch to say about something that got like a whole TV show adaptation and still has many devoted followers and readers. But I think that's the theme park that should exist. Like that in my mind, that should be up there with the Hogwarts IP. That I think that is what should be super unbelievably famous.
You don't talk a lot about your personal life, and I'm not going to ask about it. But you do kind of
what were you going to ask? Oh no.
You do kind of give just kind of inklings of how incredibly busy you are. So I'm curious what your writing schedule is. Do you have a specific set time?
Well, I'm actually pretty regimented. When I'm working on a project, it's every day. It's every day. I dedicate time every single day. Is it the same amount of time every day? No. Sometimes it's so when I'm writing fiction, I do try to hit a daily word count. And I kind of have an idea of what the book should be as far as like an end goal word count. I think my goal for Verity for the first draft was 80,000 words. And I mean, we're well over that for the final draft, but I knew that just for a draft to tell the big events of the book, I aimed for 80,000 words. And so then that just breaks down like, okay, I want this book written in 3 months. So how many words does that give me per day if I take the weekends off or if I just take Sundays off or whatever. And then, bang them out. And sometimes, bang out more words in a day than others. And that makes your goal change every day. But when I started writing, not poetry, when I started writing like nonfiction and getting into other forms, I did use the Terry Pratchett method, which was 400 words a day, which was a very achievable goal. And sometimes you're banging that out in less than 10 minutes. And sometimes if it's really hard, it stretches out into an hour or two, but 400 words a day is a really achievable introductory goal for an aspiring author. But yeah, if it's nonfiction, some days are more research days. Some days are just doing the interviews for the book and then going back and watching and listening to those interviews and then taking my notes and then reading those notes and then comparing those notes to the other research that I did just to check and see if all of this is aligning and figure out if the point that I thought I was going to make is the point that we're going to end up making. So like with the loneliness book that I have coming out in November, there were rabbit holes I thought I was going to go down that turned out not to be anything. And there was stuff I didn't even know was going to be important that said, I did not realize how many weeks of my life were going to be dedicated to researching zoning laws and how zoning laws are impacting loneliness. I didn't have any clue. So you never really know. I will tell you, most authors have a story, especially in fiction, where, you spend all day, several days doing this deep dive research into a subject so that you can write one sentence with authenticity. And inevitably that sentence will be cut. Somebody will cut that. They're going to be like, this is nothing. You don't need this. Yeah, I've done that a share of times as well, where days are just research and it all comes to just so that you can know, hey, would the person who is milking cows in this place in this time period, would they call it a pail or a bucket or this or this or this thing? And so much time just to get those tiny details right that only you care about, because nobody else cares about your book as much as you do. So yeah.
My brain went into a couple of different things.
Sorry.
No,
I yapped too much.
No, you're good. It was because I have writing projects that are just kind of stacking up, and there's one that I had started writing in like 2016, And so many of the things that I was writing about during that time period ended up happening with the pandemic and a contentious presidential election race. It's set 30 years from now, and there is a character that exists because of the overturning of Roe v. Wade, which had not happened yet. So, like, I'm at a point where I'm like, I think I just need to burn this and walk away, or finish it and yell
something
Jumanji.
similar happened with my adult science fiction novel, and I didn't, there were there is this big expansive world, multiple POVs and all of this, and I'm very excited about it. But there is this politician in there whose stuff is sort of the driving force of the first book. And it was really hard not to make him Trump. It was really hard, like, because I'm writing it in 2020. Like, we had just we had just gotten rid of him, or we were getting rid of it, like, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like it's really hard not to make him Trump. And I think that was kind of the problem, is I needed some distance from it to be able to go back. And I finally figured out who this character was by the end, and I finally figured out, like, how to make him his own person.
It was Biff from Back to the Future.
Sure. But it took so long, and the character changed so much, and I was like, in order to do this, I need fresh eyes, but I also need to be better at world building and character development and all of that kind of stuff, which is why I wrote this bad boy. But yeah, I totally get that, where it's like, you write a book that's heavily influenced by politics, because everything is always politics. Everything that we write is politics. And I don't know, then it's really hard, if the book is so heavily about politics, to come back to it when thinking and talking about politics gives you, tummy aches.
Yeah. That is the other projects that I worked on are just kind of rooted in childhood trauma, and then I do a deep dive into it.
That's
and
pretty much all of my
depressed.
books are just childhood trauma, the musical. That's yes. Yeah. Do you know what it's like to be sad and gay in a small town? Would you like to hear about what it's like to be sad and gay in a small town? Yeah, that's Don Martin's oeuvre right there.
This is just kind of aside from everything except for writing in general, but music is just kind of a big part of my life and an influence in the way and my mood. Did music influence any part of your writing when you were working on this? Is there a soundtrack, a playlist that you have in your mind for this book?
Yes to all of that. But Verity Vox is a witch with a magical singing voice.
Yeah.
Yes, music very heavily influenced the development of the book. All of the songs that she sings are real songs. They're real hymns, or they're real lullabies, or they're real nursery rhymes, or they're real things. I mean, some of them are a little tweaked, but they're all very old, and they're a little tweaked for her purpose. But yeah, it very heavily influenced. There is also a soundtrack of 2 different soundtracks. There's songs that not inspired certain scenes, but that I would listen to in order to get into the mindset of writing those scenes. And I'm going to release that once we get to closer to pub date. I've been told, no, that's the kind of thing that people are going to want to listen to, like, when the book is out. So don't do it now. And I'm like, okay. So yeah, there's a playlist.
You can release a single just to get it out of your system.
I did really want. I had dreamed that I'd be able to get somebody, maybe the audiobook narrator, is Jennifer Hale, to do the songs. But then I found out that you are not allowed to sing on an audiobook.
Huh.
Because and it's just like blanket rules that studios have. So this one went through Penguin Random House, and the studio rule, they have a publishing rule. You can't sing on it, because then you have to worry about licensing fees and all of it. Like, then it's a different contract. It's not just a performance of my audiobook, then it becomes a performance of somebody else's song. Now, the very unique thing about my book is that it would have been a loophole to allow them to do it, because all of the songs are hundreds of years old. So
Yeah.
would have been fine. Very much, very much open to all at that point. No copyright on that. Nobody that wrote that is alive at all. It's very much, in the commons. So it would have been a loophole, but there's no. So, anyways, I had the idea to have some of those songs out there as well, but that didn't happen. But maybe if the book blows up, the publisher will let me do it because, like I said, they are very much not within copyright. We are hundreds of years outside of anybody suing anybody to perform those songs. So yeah,
I'm sure if they see a financial avenue for it, they will make it happen.
But the other soundtrack is so when I'm drafting, I will I'll go onto YouTube and I'll get those like playlists of like nature sounds, and I will sit there and go through until I find one that's exactly how I imagine that scene to sound like. So like when we're at the Miller's farm, it'll be like wind over a wheat field in the valley of a mountain. Like I will go find very specifically the sound of what that sounds like, and I'll listen to that the whole time that I'm drafting all of those sections. And then, when we're in the woods, I find, all of that stuff. So, the big climactic battle, you find rushing river sounds and, all of this stuff. So that's the other playlist, but that's not as fun. You can't sing along to that unless you go.
I think I referenced this in the last author interview that I did, and I am not I don't get money from Endel, the sound app, but I think I'll just keep referencing it until they just start giving me money. But it is something that I have, because I just am constantly listening to music, but I just kind of self-diagnosed myself because of what the algorithm was throwing at me. I'm like, well, it's, I'm balding and I keep getting those things. So this referenced the Endel app of, hey, do you have ADHD and you can't concentrate when you're reading? I'm like, I don't know if I have ADHD, but I can't concentrate for shit when I'm reading. Try this. I'm like, oh, now I can read a book. And it's just white noise, just different sounds.
I will do that sometimes. I will, but I'll listen. If you like white noise, have you heard of brown noise?
No.
Find a brown noise playlist on. It's not as harsh.
Okay.
It's like a more pleasant version of white noise. Okay. I don't know why it scratches all the itches in my brain. I love some good ASMR as well. Moonlit Cottage, I think is my favorite. She does a lot of like immersive videos, but sometimes she'll do a video where she's just like folding objects into paper and so I'll put that on. Calm myself down, especially when I'm editing. I'm like, I don't want to cut that. Paper fold.
I like that. Before I let you go, you already had referenced it, but you also have, what is the specific date? It's August
5th.
August 5th.
We're coming up
very soon. So I will get
soon
this up.
But it'll be on sale technically in one place before then.
Okay.
I will be at Young Adult Midwest just outside Chicago. It's put on by Anderson's Books. Okay. And I'll be at Young Adult Midwest. I'll be doing the keynote with Samira Ahmed, and my book will be available there on July 26th. So if you want to read it before pub date and you happen to be in the Midwest, come to Young Adult Midwest. The book will be there, and I will sign it for you. But yeah, it goes on sale everywhere in all the formats on August 5th. My book launch is August 4th, also at Anderson's in Naperville, only because you're all the way over there and I'm here. Mm-hmm. And then that week kicks off the tour. I'll be going to a bookstore in West Virginia to kick it off. And then from there, we go to tons of places. So I just today finalized the last couple of tour dates. So it starts the beginning of August and I go until like late September.
Great.
I'm going to be so tired.
As this is called the pre-order podcast, I encourage pre-orders.
Yes.
And I do that by anyone that I interview. I offer a 20% discount on their book.
Pre-order
so
through you guys.
Yes.
And I need to get you guys. I need to find a way to like. Where are you guys? Wait, where are you located?
We are.
I will. That probably isn't anywhere remotely near New York City, is it?
It is about as far away from New York City as you can get while still being in New York. We are.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Like an hour north of, or
I was just going to offer to sign the stick,
Pennsylvania, and then about an hour and a half or 2 hours south of Buffalo.
I'm coming to New York on the book tour, but I'm not. It'll be the city. I've never been. I'm excited.
Wave from the plane as you pass over Chautauqua County.
I'll wave. I was gonna say I'll come swing by and sign, but it doesn't sound like I'll be able to.
No, yeah, we're it's a very odd destination because Chautauqua County, it's super rural, but we have Lucille Ball is from the area.
Okay.
Grew up in the area, buried in the area. We have the Lucy Desi Museum, which has been around for decades.
Oh, I'd go to that. My husband and I still regularly put on episodes of I Love Lucy. It is very much a comfort watch. Still to this day, we will actively put that on and just binge half a season or something. It's so funny. It's so funny. It still holds up. It's so good. And then sometimes it doesn't hold up, and you're like, it was like 40s, 50s, whatever.
They have set recreations. They have the Tropicana room. Part of Lucy's vision for the area was that she didn't want it to just be like a museum for her. So just before the pandemic, they launched the National Comedy Center. So it's this huge interactive thing for comedy that like Lewis Black is always in the area. Nate Bargatze just joined their advisory board. And we're also 20 minutes from Chautauqua Institution, which brings in a ton of different people. It has a very long history. Salman Rushdie, that's where he was stabbed. Not the best, the more recent headline for Chautauqua Institution, but one that they would like me to stop referencing. But
that's wild. That's so cool to have in your backyard.
Yes. Yeah. So there's fun. A lot of things going on in the area to bring people.
I want to go to the Lucy Museum. I want to go to the Comedy Museum. I want to go there. Well, that sounds fun.
Yeah. Well, when you do that, we are 15 minutes away.
Okay.
My office for the chamber is actually directly across the street from the Lucy Desi Museum.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so dang cool. Oh my God.
And I will have to check, but because it's coming out in November, Where Did Everybody Go? I would imagine is also available through the book ecosystem.
Yes,
that would
it's available for pre-order. But it is coming out as an audiobook first.
Okay.
Simon and Schuster is doing this big thing where they're doing like audio for sort of like how books will come out in hardcover and then paperback, or like paperback, and if it does really well, then it gets a hardcover. Remember when we used to do that?
Yeah.
But they're doing this kind of backwards thing where they're starting with the audiobook, and if it does well, then it gets a physical release. So
that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So it's available, but people can still support you by ordering. Do you guys have a link through Libro FM? Yeah,
we do have a link through Libro FM.
Yeah,
I can't offer a discount through Libro FM, but I can encourage people to get it.
So then bookstore and get my book. Where Did Everybody Go?
Yes.
Something. I don't remember the subtitle to my book because I didn't come up with it. A marketing team did. So why we're lonely but never alone. That's I think the subtitle for the book. It's called Where Did Everybody Go? I have the cover's amazing. It comes out in November 5th. Remember the 5th of November.
I do. Well, it was great chatting with you. We'll have to do this again for Where Did Everybody Go?
Thank you. This was fun.
Yeah. It was.
Can I interview you back? What did you like about the book?
I got very overwhelmed and have not finished reading it.
God damn it, Bob.
But I love the playful language.
I deeply, deeply, deeply appreciate that you did not just bullshit me there.
Yeah.
I've been in rooms where somebody is like, I loved the part
Where?
with the mermaid. And I'm like, oh, did you? Yeah. No, I appreciate
Yes.
that. No, I love that. That's good. I
No, I
appreciate that.
started it. I will get back to it.
I'm glad I didn't put spoilers in there then.
Well,
I'm good.
and it's for fiction books, it's kind of nice because I try to always read the book in its entirety before an interview, because it seems like the right thing to do. I became really good friends with this guy, Ray Robertson, who's an author out of Ontario, because I was the first person that had ever interviewed him that had read his book. And now
Uh-huh.
we're like, we're buddies. Um, and he's just this huge curmudgeon of a guy, but we love each other. Um,
Aw.
and
Does your wife know?
she does. She's
Okay,
okay
good.
with it.
Okay.
Yeah. um, but I booked this, and then I was able to. My goal is always to try to steal authors away from Chautauqua Institution because they just get Salman Rushdie and Malcolm
Uh-huh.
Gladwell and all of these folks. Um, and I did this publicity speed dating thing through our regional booksellers association, where I pitched the store to 50 different publicists, and one said, "Hey, we have an author at Chautauqua Institution. Would you do an event with him too?" Absolutely, I would. So it's Auden Schendler, who's a climate activist out of Colorado, and I will be sitting down with him at the Robert H. Jackson Center, which, another plug for the area. Robert H. Jackson he was a Supreme Court justice who grew up in the area, and then left the Supreme Court to be the lead prosecutor during the Nuremberg trials. So we are the official book supplier for the Robert H. Jackson Center, and I'll be interviewing Auden a week from today. Yep. So I need to finish that book because nonfiction books, I really need to know what the hell I'm talking about. Um, with fiction, I'm
Yeah.
always worried that I'm going to spoil the book by talking about it too much.
Yeah, it's hard to talk to somebody about nonfiction if it's like, can't bullshit my way through this. So, it's hard.
The
It's
um,
hard.
there was the couple interviews. One that was just the hardest emotionally, and was we interviewed Tufa Jallo, who is a refugee from the Gambia, who lives in Canada now, who was raped by the king of the Gambia and then had to flee the country in like the back of a chicken truck. And then it was her whole story. And I don't know how I got access to interview her, but I did.
Good
And
Lord.
it went really well. And then the one where I just felt really dumb was Katie Mack. She wrote The End of Everything. She's an
Oh, yeah.
astrophysicist, and it was like
Yeah.
the five most likely ways, or the
Uh-huh.
five most possible ways that the entire universe could end. And
Uh-huh.
I had to read it and then listen to the audiobook. I'm
Yeah.
like, all right, if I listen to somebody who sounds like they know what they're talking about, read it to me,
Yeah.
I still
When
felt
the dumbest that I've ever felt on my podcast was also with a physicist, a quantum physicist.
dumb.
I interviewed a quantum physicist because I was like, well, everybody always says, this and this and this is because of quantum physics. And I was like, that doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
So I did a shit ton of research, and I was like, I'll just go ask an expert because I've got a podcast. That's what I
Yeah.
do. Is I talk to experts in overlooked or misunderstood fields. So I reached out to one who does some real cool shit, and he came on my show, and I think he thought I was the dumbest human being on the face of the planet. I also don't think that he quite realized that this is just really like hey, what is like base level, like what, like help
Explain it to me like
explain
I'm
this to
five.
an idiot.
Yeah.
So then I had to have a second quantum physicist come on to explain what the first quantum physicist told me.
I mean, it's
And
good that
she
you have
was
such
great.
access to all of these.
She was wonderful. She like broke it all down in like gamer and fantasy terms and stuff. It was great. That was such a fun episode, but I've never felt as dumb as I did in that first interview.
Do you
Like,
still have that first episode up?
of course.
All
Yeah.
right.
Oh yeah.
Just
Yeah.
quietly
I'm gonna put
delete.
all of my lore is up on the internet for your amusement. Yeah, it was so awkward. It was such an awkward interview, and I tried so hard to salvage it, and I do not think it worked. But the follow-up was great.
I just interview horror stories. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but this is
No, you're
fun.
fine.
I had an interview with it was about the Nexium cults. It was Don't
Oh
Call It a Cult.
Lord. Yeah.
And it was just weird timing of, I've done a lot of interviews with Steerforth Press authors who do narrative nonfiction. Tad Stormer, if you don't follow him on TikTok, it's TADSTOERMER. But he has a book coming out with Steerforth next year about resistance history of the United States. And I feel like they need to rush that publication and have it come out a year ago. But roundabout way, lost track of what I was talking about. The Nexium cult woman, I was interviewing her, and it was the day after
The one from
I had my
Smallville?
second COVID shot. And I realized, like, my face just went pale during the interview, and I'm like, oh, this isn't good. So
I did. What did I have to do? I did. This was way back. Oh, no. I didn't interview for, this isn't public. It was researching a book. It was a different book. It was a different nonfiction book. It was a book about death that I was going to call I'm Gonna Die Alone. And then I shelved that book and wrote Loneliness instead, because that was calling to me a little bit more, and it was a little bit quicker and shorter of a book because I already did that research and then realized I wasn't going to use that research in the book about death. And some of those interviews that I did for the death book, I deeply, we were still very in the pandemic at the time and super like at home. But that was my one and only experience with COVID, and I was dying in those interviews. And I'm so glad. I was going back and listening to me now. I was like, oh, I sound rough. So glad that those are not available for public consumption. But everybody was so nice. I remember sweating so bad. I was disgusting. I was disgusting. Yeah. So fun. But I got a great interview out of it.
That's wonderful. Did you have any other questions for me to reveal the things that I have not done?
No, I don't. No, I'll let you off the hook. I won't grill you further. Thank you so much for having me. This has been so fun.
It was nice to actually communicate at the same time rather than stitching and replying.
Yes, this has been fun.
Yes.
I enjoy your content. Thank you.
Thank you.
And congratulations on the beautiful store.
Thank you. It's coming up. Well, it's next month. It'll be 5 years in this location.
Oh, wow.
And we've had it for 7.5 years now, which doesn't seem possible.
Yeah.
But here we are.
Yeah. Congratulations. That's a good long time.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. We'll keep in touch. Order the book. I will do a record an intro where I say the book correctly and tell people to buy it.